So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. It's the beginning of January and I'm going to be taking a little wander around the allotment, showing you what I'm doing. I'm going to be harvesting a few bits. I'm also going to be pruning my raspberries because a lot of people have been asking me the difference between autumn and summer fruiting. And although I featured it very briefly on my last video, I didn't actually show you the pruning process and roughly comparing between the two. So hopefully if you're not sure what you've got or you're not sure how to prune what you've got, that will help you. So first of all, I've got my basket to harvest, I've got a pair of gloves, I've got something to prune with, and I've also got a fork there. A rather tired, old looking fork that was my grandfather's, but it still does the job really well. So, as we start off, up at the top here, my artichokes, I've done a little bit of weeding around them just to tidy them up. They're my globe artichokes, so if you've not done that, that's worth doing. This time of year it does all start to naturally die back, so there's a little bit more tidying up I could do. But I have done a little bit of weeding around them. I had quite a lot of nettles. Obviously I've pruned my fruit trees. My rhubarb, I think, since my last video, is poking through a little bit more. Now obviously if we get a heavy snow or a frost, it could affect them. I might cover them with a bit more manure if I remember, but there's still plenty of time. Even if the frost did get to them, you won't really stop your rhubarb from growing. It's pretty hardy. As we walk down, we've got my raspberries here, which I'm going to be pruning in a minute, and my blackberries. I've already pruned my gooseberries and my blackcurrants. I've dug a nice big section over here. So the other day, what I'm doing is I'm gradually digging over everything so it's ready for the spring. I'm going to dig a little bit more and then I'm going to cover it because obviously once you do this, it all looks really, really perfect and you think it looks great, and then the weeds start to grow. So once I've dug a little bit more, I'm going to put some sheeting down just to protect that, and I would recommend that if you've got any areas that you're digging over, unless you like reweeding it and digging it in again, then I do recommend putting some ground cover down. If you've not got any really good ground cover, I will put a link in the description of one that we use, and it's absolutely fantastic. Use it every year, lift it up, put it down, completely reusable and really fantastic. So the first thing I'm going to do is dig a few leeks. Because of the allium leaf miner that I've got, I'm digging at least a row at a time, if not 2 rows, because they're really not keeping that well in the ground. They are going a bit mushy, but they are still perfectly good. They are feeding us, so they are still doing their job. And if I'm honest, I think I do get a little bit of allium leaf miner most years, despite my best efforts not to get it. I can't. It is just one of those things when you grow your own produce. As long as it's not clearing you out and you're still getting some produce, it's, you know, it is what it is with an allotment. It's homegrown, it's not going to be perfect. Like I said, never grow them in the same place each year is your biggest tip. And some people recommend putting enviromesh over them at certain times of the year, because that's when the allium leaf miner are at their most prolific. Today I'm just going to dig a row because I've still got a few left in the fridge. What I do is I clean them up. So as soon as I get these home, because they're not the best, and even if they were really good, I genuinely tidy them up and clean them up when I get them home. Because obviously once you leave them, they're then more fiddly to tidy up, especially if they're a little bit tatty like these ones are with the allium leaf miner. But like I said, it's still perfectly edible. You just take off the damaged leaves, which are generally just the outer leaves. Occasionally I'll get the odd leek, which when I start peeling it back, I can't do anything with. But generally speaking, most of them, you know, there's still a good amount of leek that's edible, so it's still all perfectly good eating. So, and still homegrown, grown without chemicals. So it's all got to be good, doesn't it, really? So I'll just finish this last few. Decent. It's actually a lot easier to dig today. I dug the other day, and where we'd had so much rain, the ground was really, really clumpy. But this one, I'm actually just shaking the dirt off, which is a lot easier than it was the other day. But the other day I really needed some leeks, so I had to dig them come what may. I didn't want to have to go to a supermarket and buy them, because that would just be crazy when you've got leeks. So these will probably last me until the end of January, although we've got a bad one there, that one just broke off. But yeah, that's the first one that's been really, obviously with the allium leaf miner, sometimes it just rots. And that one's probably no good. But the rest of them, once I peel some of the outer leaves off, there's every chance that every single one of them will be perfectly good eating. So before I go, I will take these up to the composters and I will just remove the outer leaves, and then I will take them home. I'll remove the outer leaves, take the top and the bottom off, and then when I get them home I'll give them a good wash. So I will leave them there rather than put them in my basket, because I want to see what my beetroots look like. So let's move down to the beetroots. Now after the frost that we had, they look really terrible. You know, all the leaves have pretty much died off and you could be mistaken in thinking that they're no good. But the beetroots are still perfectly good in the ground, look. Now, what I will say is this time of year I'm going to start probably digging more than I would do, because I've got a few in this row and I've got a few in that row. So I'm going to be, I don't even need a fork on these, but as you can see the beetroots are all still perfectly good. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not going to dig all of them, but I'm going to dig enough to take home to do something with, and I might give some to my brother-in-law as well because he really likes beetroot. So I've got some all different colours here, look. So I do grow the bolt hardy, but I normally put a pack of mixed seed in as well, just to get some mixtures in colours. There we go, nice vibrant orangey yellow looking one there, isn't that lovely? So if you've never grown beetroot before, bolt hardy is one I would highly recommend. I think you're going to need a fork for that one, because like it says on the tin, it's bolt hardy, it's less likely to bolt, and also these multicoloured ones, because they're really quite good fun. So I think that will do me for now. So there we go. I've got some carrots here. I'm not sure they're really up to much. I've got to say it's not been my best year. I don't know whether I didn't dig the ground over enough, but they are all a bit ibbly bobbly bibbly shaped. For some reason the frost didn't seem to affect the leaves on the carrots, so that's not too bad. So they're not my best carrots, I'm not going to pretend that they are. So you've got a couple there that are okay, but even someone like me, you get the odd years where they're not great. I have had a few out of this, to be fair, but it's definitely not one of my better years with carrots. I've got to make sure I just dig the ground over a little bit more. If the ground's really, really hard, it's harder for the carrots to grow down into it. So maybe that's what it was, or maybe it was just the really dry weather we had. Who knows? Who knows? So as we moved swiftly around, like I said, I've got more beetroot and carrots, which I can dig another day. And I might dig a few more before I leave. There's my garlic and onions over there. Unfortunately, my chard, I think, when we had that snow, has well and truly ruined it. I'm going to give it, you know, I'm going to probably dig that last, if I'm honest, to see if it does grow back. But to be fair, I've had a really good innings off of that chard, and if it's killed it off, then that's that. I was chatting to one of the other guys on the allotment, and he's a really seasoned gardener and really, really good at growing stuff. And he lost his cauliflowers when we had that unexpected snow back in December. So if someone like him, who's been growing things for years and years, can lose the odd item with a bit of an unexpected heavy, it was incredibly cold as well, not just snow. So I think the two together combines to things being affected more than they normally would be. So as we move up, my Brussels and my purple sprouting still aren't doing anything. There is time for the purple sprouting. I'm not sure about the Brussels, if I'm honest. If anyone's watching this, if you could let me know whether you still think my Brussels are going to swell out, because I'm just not too sure. At the moment I'm not doing anything else with it, so I can still leave them in there and see if they swell out. But yeah, it's not exactly the win I was after, but there we go. And as we move around, we've got a lovely bit of purple sprouting kale here. So I'm going to take my gloves off because I don't want really muzzy kale, and I'm going to pick some of this because I'm doing a curry dish this evening and I like making a little bit of crispy kale to go with it. So let's take a little bit of this off. This wasn't affected at all by the frost. A little bit of white fly on it, but nothing major. So I'm just going to take enough off for one meal. One thing you've got to bear in mind with the kale this time of year, it's not going to grow back very quickly, so only pick what you need. So the last thing you want to do is go picking loads and loads of it. You're better off just leaving it on the plant because it will store better on there. So that will probably, a little bit more maybe, and that'll be enough for our dinner this evening. you've never done crispy kale before, it is really lovely, one of our favourite things. Or we could just stir fry it, is what we're going to do, one or the other. I know some people don't like it crispy, but I do quite like it crispy. Whether it's with whatever dish, to be fair. I have it with all sorts of things. Doesn't have to be a Chinese meal, it can be anything. So that's a good clump of kale. Just recover that. Like I said, keep things like this covered because the birds will have a go at it, especially when you've had such frosty weather. A lot of stuff would have died back because of the frosty weather, so they'll be searching out for scrumptious things they can eat, and you don't want it to be your kale. So there we go, that's that covered back up, and let's move up to the raspberries and I'll show you how to prune them. So we're now up at the raspberries and I'm going to show you the difference of how you prune autumn raspberries as opposed to summer fruiting raspberries. Now I'm going to start with the summer fruiting ones because they're quite easy to show you. They are our favourite raspberries. I do prefer them than the autumn ones, if I'm honest with you, but I do have both because I like to spread my raspberries out throughout the season. But you can hear a robin up in the tree. He's been chirping away through most of this video. Very hard to get a picture of him though, because every time you get close to him he flies away. But it sounds very beautiful, I think you'll agree. So we digress, but the birds are really lovely. Now, what you are pruning out is the old canes from last year that fruited. Now, the way you can easily tell is you can see some of the old fruit on these and leaves. So you would take that down, right down to the ground, and take that out. Quite close to a post there because it's a bit fiddly to get out. So you cut that out right down to the ground. And another one there, that's another old one. So again, cut it out right down to the ground with your secateurs. Like so. What you're going to be leaving in are ones like this. So these are new growth because you can see the buds on them, and they're lighter, slightly different colour as well. You can tell the difference between the old canes that look a little bit older as well. So there we go. I need to grease my secateurs. So some more old canes there, right down to the ground, and cut them out like so. And again, that one there. Like so. And we've got another new cane just around there, if you can see. You can see it's got the little buds on it, slightly different in colour, and that's new growth. If we have a look through here, I'm not going to do all this on camera because it will take too long. If we just compare again, that is a new growth, because it's slightly lighter in colour. It's got no dead twigs or raspberries on it, so that looks like a new one, as opposed to that one, which is an old one, because you can see where all the raspberries have grown out from last year. So I'll be taking all these old ones out and leaving all these new ones in. It will look quite bare by the time I've taken it out. If you've got too many new canes that have shot up, it might be worth pruning a few out. This year I haven't got that. I haven't got that many new canes, but some years I've had lots of new canes shooting up, and I find that I don't get such a good crop if I leave too many in. So that's your summer fruiting, and as a general rule of thumb, your summer fruiting are also a lot taller than your autumn fruiting. So as you can see, these ones are quite tall over here. As we then move over to the autumn fruiting, as you can see, these ones actually are a lot smaller. So that's another distinct difference. If you've moved onto a plot and you're not sure what you've got, that's another key point to look at. And what you're looking at here, all you've got on autumn fruiting is all dead wood. So you've got no new canes shooting up. All you've got is all the old stuff. So the way you prune this, that's the one thing about autumn fruiting, it's a lot easier. You literally cut them all off down to the ground, and all new shoots will come up during the year ready for the autumn. So you can be really brutal with this one and literally just cut everything off. It's a little bit pricklier, that's another thing as well. Now I'm doing it, I've just seen there's lots more spines on these. You find that the autumn ones are a lot more pricklier than the summer fruiting ones as well. So we finished pruning the raspberries. It all looks a little bit brutal compared to what it looked like a few moments ago. Obviously the autumn ones are completely floored down to the ground like so, and the summer fruiting ones, all we've got left now are the new canes. Unfortunately some of our supports fell down as we were doing it. I had some help, it wasn't just me doing it, my cameraman was helping me doing some pruning too. So we've got a little bit of work to do there, putting the supports back in. We did thin them out a little bit, and we might thin them out a little bit more, because we actually, when we first started pruning it, we didn't think we had that many new shoots, but then after we started taking all the dead wood out, we actually realised we had quite a lot of shoots. And if you have too many new shoots, I often find that you don't get such good raspberries, because they're fighting for obviously the nutrients and the water. So we thinned a few out, and we may thin a few more out. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching my video. I'd love to know what you're doing, and I'd love to know what you liked most about the video. Please give us a like and a comment, and if you've not already subscribed, if you could please do so.